Hello everyone, welcome to the current affairs discussion where I'll be discussing all of the important topics that are necessary for UPSC. Right, I'll be discussing all of the concepts, or be it for prelims or be it for mains. I'll explain whether it is for prelims or mains, then you can use it whenever you want and wherever you want. Right. So yeah, firstly, let's start. Record turnout in Assam, Puducherry, Kerala near an all-time high. Recently, the elections have been conducted in states such as states and UTs such as Assam, West Bengal, Puducherry, and Kerala. Right. Keeping all of this in mind, let us discuss about what is first past to post and what is proportional representation. We can use this information for both what you call prelims and mains, because whenever it comes to mains, UPSC might ask these kind of questions such as what is first past to post and what you call proportional representation, and how are they beneficial for Indian ecosystem or Indian political ecosystem. That is what UPSC might ask. So keeping that in mind, I'm trying to discuss all of those important aspects. Firstly, first past to post. First past to post is usually used when we want a clear winner. Whenever we want a clear winner or a stable government, we use first past to post. What happens in first past to post? I'll explain it in a simple manner with an example. Let's say there are three candidates, candidate A, candidate B, and candidate C. Candidate A gets around 40% votes. Candidate B gets 30% votes, and candidate C gets 30% votes. Or let's say he gets 20% votes, because there's nowhere 100% people voting for all the members. Okay, so we have 20, 30, and 40, 90%, right? So the person who's getting most amount of votes gets the seat. So first past to post works. Okay, and in India we use first past to post in Lok Sabha elections and also in legislative assembly elections, because we are choosing a person for representing the people. Okay, whenever we are representing the people, it is a clear choice. So first past to post helps clear the choice by providing a clear winner. So this is where first past to post is used. Then you have proportional representation. Proportional representation is used when we want fairness and equal representation. Right? We use proportional representation whenever we want the elections to be fair and also equal representation should be present in the particular election. We use proportional representation. I'll explain the proportional representation in simple manner as well. Okay, proportional representation, let's say there is a party A, a party B, and a party C. Right, here we are talking about parties, we are not talking about candidates. Right, party A, party B, and party C. Party A gets, let's say the total number of seats are 100 seats. 100 seats are there, and party A gets 40% votes, party B gets 30% votes, and party C gets 30% votes. So these are the amount of votes that each party gets, and based on this proportion, they get the number of seats. Meaning, the party A gets 40 seats, party B gets 30 seats, and party C gets 30 seats, thereby filling all the 100 seats and giving equal representation based on proportional representation method. This is how proportional representation works. We use proportional representation when it comes to Rajya Sabha, legislative councils, and president election and vice president election. We use proportional representation because here you see Rajya Sabha. What is Rajya Sabha? Rajya Sabha is nothing but the voice of the states. Whenever we are talking about voice of the states, we need clear representation or equal representation. That is why we are preferring proportional representation when it comes to Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, president and vice president. Okay, this is what I wanted to tell when it comes to elections with first past post and proportional representation. You can use all of this information when it comes to prelims or also mains. Moving on. Moving on, we'll look at the editorial, which has a lot of information, right? I think today's editorials have a lot of information. Firstly, making scholarships integral to India's academic culture, right? Basically, this editorial is talking about the higher education institutions where there is three barriers or three systemic barriers that are present for students or what you call the young population that is present in India. And those three systemic barriers are: one, affordability issue, affordability barrier; second is the access barrier; and last is the quality barrier. Right? Whenever there are higher educational institutions, there are three kinds of barriers that students or the young population face. One is the affordability barrier. The higher educations are very expensive in nature. Right? They cost around 70 to 80 lakhs or 1 crore when it comes to high quality education. Okay. Then access. Right? Many colleges are not that present in the remote areas, so many people have to travel from remote areas to the urban areas, and that access to people for higher education is reduced. Right? And the quality access. Right? Quality represents not in terms of the amount of representation, but when it comes to quality, it is talking about how the education is useful in getting a skill. Okay. At the end of the day, we think education is getting a degree, but education is not getting a degree. Education is having an ability or a skill to ensure that you can live in your livelihood. Okay. So that is what quality refers to. And in the current higher education, what you call institutions, there is high amount of education, but there is less amount of skill. Okay. The reason we are talking about all of these barriers is because the government of India is seeking for a gross enrollment rate, right? Gross enrollment rate in higher education institutions of 50%. We are aiming for a 50% gross enrollment ratio in higher education institutions, meaning that out of every 100 young people, we need 50 young people in higher education institutions. That is what 50% of gross enrollment ratio means. Okay, but and the current education or the gross enrollment ratio is 29.5%. And the only way we can tackle this gross enrollment ratio and increase the amount of people present in the higher education institutions is by providing scholarship, is what the author is trying to say. The author is trying to say that scholarships is the only way or the main way through which we can ensure that more people are going for higher educational institutions. Now, what is scholarship? Scholarships are of many types, right? The author took an example of Takshashila, right? Takshashila, where the scholarship was present for all the people, that they could pay the fees either in 5 ways, either by paying upfront, they could pay the fees upfront, then either they could learn while working with the teacher, then they could either pay the fees after the graduation, or there are scholarships based on region, or they could get money from charity. Like, this is how Takshila worked. So the author is trying to say that we need to keep these kind of scholarships for students so that they can ensure they can get access to higher education institutions and they can contribute better to the Indian economy. That is what the author is trying to say. And the author has proposed 4 types of scholarships so that there can be more enrollment. First one is the what you call private and public funding. Then you have skill-based scholarship. Then you have region-based scholarship. Right? Region-based scholarship. Then you have long-term scholarship. These are the kind of scholarship that the government can actually come up with so that many people can enroll in the higher educational institutions and contribute more to the society. The reason we are talking more about scholarships and more about higher education institutions is because of the social capital that we have. Currently, the amount of social capital we have is for a 33-year period, meaning for the next 33 years from till 2049-50, we have high growth potential where the young population or the working population is present. So we need to utilize this population, and the only way to utilize this population is to gain population that is skillful in nature, right? So it is not only a change in curriculum or the increasing of number of colleges, it is also ensuring that there is high amount of enrollment happening in these colleges. And this is what the author is trying to say, because education is very important for India right now, as we have a high number of younger population, more number of higher educational institutions going to, more number of students going to higher educational institutions means there is more growth, right? So you can use it in GS2 when it comes to education, right? This is what I wanted to tell regarding this particular editorial. Next, you have Nari Shakti, India's defining reform, the next decade. Basically, this particular editorial is saying that for a country to run, you need two kinds of machines, right? Half of the machine is run by men and half of the machine is run by women. And the only way an India or a country can accelerate, right? Only way a country can accelerate is when both of the machines can work efficiently together. Currently, the machines that is run by men is working properly, but then again, the India or the government is trying to bring in more efficient and more what you call policies and schemes or infrastructure that would ensure that the women's side is also working properly. So in the near future, we can expect a fully accelerating India. That is what the author is trying to say. And the author is also trying to prove what are the infrastructure that India has brought so that the other part of the India's efficiency is working properly. So the infrastructure that has been brought for empowering women, right? The author has come with a few examples. I'll explain those few examples through the note, right? First one is Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, where 57 crore, right? 57 crore bank accounts have been created, and half of them are women. Right? How are the bank accounts created for what you call through Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana are for women. Then you have self-help groups, right? Self-help groups, nearly 10 crore women are enrolled in the self-help groups, meaning they are both financially and economically independent. Right? That is also a part of empowerment. Then you have high amount of labor force participation rate, right? Female labor force participation rate. What is it? It is around 37%. Right, 37 to 40% is the female labor force participation rate. Right. Other than that, you have Mudra loans. Mudra loans is for entrepreneurship. Nearly 70% of the loans are given for women. These are all the stats that you need to keep in mind, because when it comes to society, or whenever you are learning about the society or India, you need to understand all the parts or all the facets of India. And this is one of the facets which is very important for India to run properly. So yeah, Mudra loans, 70% of the loans are given to women. And then you have in the healthcare sector, you have Pradhan Mantri Matri Surakshit Yojana, where you are providing healthcare for pregnant women. And it's also in changing the social mindset. And also changing the social mindset, you have Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Right? Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao is also a scheme that ensures there is change in the social mindset. This way, the author is trying to say that we have brought infrastructure in every sphere, be it the economic, be it the social, be it the economical, be it the financial sphere. In all the spheres, we are trying to bring in infrastructure and ensuring their participation into the mainstream society or the mainstream economy, right? But the author is also trying to say that it is not creating more schemes that we need, right? At the end of the day, it's not the number of schemes that we create. It is how much the benefit is going to the people, or it is going to the beneficiaries. That is what it is required. So the author is trying to talk about the last mile reach. We have all the infrastructure, we have the pipe, we have the water, but is it reaching the household? Right? At the end of the day, if it reaches the household, then it's called beneficiary. Until and unless it does not reach the household, it is not. So we have created many infrastructure. At the end of the day, if the particular female or the women is not benefiting from this particular infrastructure, is it not working properly? How will you know? That is what the author is trying to say. And the author has proposed a few methods to ensure that we are moving on the right path by suggesting 3 ways, right? 3 ways to tackle it. One is ensuring outcome-based financing. Right? Whenever we are bringing in a scheme or whenever we are bringing in a policy, is how we should look at the outcome, and based on that outcome, we need to finance. Right? Whenever the outcome is high, we need to finance more. Right? Then again, implementation. Proper implementation is what we need. We need to have a proper outlay. Whenever we have a proper outlay, we'll understand how we can ensure that this particular scheme is implemented properly. Okay, the proper implementation. Then local level responsibility. Right? At the end of the day, the amount of rural women present, we can understand whether the urban women are getting the benefits or not. but in order to understand whether the rural women are getting the benefits or not, we need to have local level responsibility. We can ask the district officers and other level officers to ensure or be accountable whenever the program is being implemented. This is how we need to ensure that our India is growing at a multifold rate. The author is also trying to say that we have recently brought the 106th constitutional amendment, through which we have Nari Shakti Vandan Adhinam, right, where we are giving representation to women in the Lok Sabha elections and also legislative assembly elections. What happens there? It helps ensure that the policies are implemented in such a way that the sphere of women is also being accelerated properly. So Nari Shakti Vandan Adhinam is also a part and parcel of how India can accelerate its growth in multifold. That is what the author is trying to say. You can use this particular article in General Studies paper 1 when it comes to equality and GS2 paper when it comes to governance. Right? These are the two aspects where you can use this particular editorial. Okay. Then you have timely inaction, slowing growth and rising inflation necessitated unchanged rates. Basically, this is talking about Monetary Policy Committee, and I wanted to explain a little on Monetary Policy Committee, what is the repo rate, and also the growth inflation trade-off, so that you can have a better understanding on what economy is and how the economy is working. Okay, let us understand firstly Monetary Policy Committee. Monetary Policy Committee was brought in 2016, right? It is a 6-member committee where 3 members are from RBI and 3 members are nominated by the government, right? And they meet 4 times a year, and their main mandate is to control inflation while also supporting growth. This is their main mandate. What is MPC? Monetary Policy Committee is brought in 2016, is a 6-member committee with 3 members from RBI, with 3 members from government nominated, and they meet 4 times a year, and their main motto is to target the inflation while also supporting the growth. How do they do the targeting of inflation and growth? Basically, they change the repo rate. Repo rate is the rate at which the RBI or the central bank lends to other banks. Okay, so whenever there is high amount of inflation, what happens? There is high amount of aggregate demand, meaning there is high amount of money in the economy. Whenever there is high amount of money in the economy, what do? They reduce the repo rate. What happens when they increase the repo rate? Whenever they increase the repo rate, the banks will lend to the customers or the individuals or the companies at a higher rate. Let's say I have 100 rupees, right? I am giving you 100 rupees at a 10% interest rate, and that 10% interest rate is very high for you. So in order to get a profit, what will you do? You lend it to another person at 12% interest rate. So that is how a repo rate also works. If I increase the repo rate, you will also lend at higher amount of interest rate. So that way inflation is being reduced. And whenever there is less growth, whenever the growth rate is low, the repo rate is decreased. Whenever the repo rate is decreased, the banks ensure that they are lending at a lower rate so that there is more money supply in the ecosystem. That is how the repo rate works, to ensure there's high inflation and low growth. But then again, there is a problem with this particular inflation targeting. It is called a growth inflation trade-off. What is growth inflation trade-off? Let's say there is high amount of growth. What is high amount of growth? High amount of growth means high amount of GDP. Whenever the GDP increases, it means that there is high amount of transactional demand, right? Meaning more output is there. Whenever there is more output, obviously there will be more inflation. What will happen when there is more inflation? Obviously the ecosystem or the economy will get heat. Whenever the economy will get heated, the the money will get appreciated. What happens when money the inflation will obviously reduce the value of money, right? It will reduce the value of money, thereby affecting the growth overall. So if you are targeting growth, you need to trade off inflation, and if you are actually targeting inflation, you need to trade off growth. That is nothing but the growth and inflation trade-off. That is what I wanted to explain when it comes to Monetary Policy Committee. Okay, I hope you guys understood what Monetary Policy Committee is and what repo rate is, and also what growth inflation trade-off is, where high growth leads to high inflation and high inflation actually affects an economy. And whenever high inflation is affecting the economy, we are ensuring that we are reducing the inflation. And whenever the inflation is reduced, it is actually affecting the growth as well. Okay. So yeah, that is about timely inaction, that particular editorial. Then you have, I don't think there's much present here. Yeah, I wanted to explain a little on semaglutides, right? Semaglutides, whereas basically we have a particular hormone called GLP-1 in our body. GLP-1 is a hormone that is produced naturally in our body. And this GLP-1 hormone is usually released after we eat. It will ensure that our body has a signal saying that your stomach is full and there's no need for you to eat more. That is what the GLP-1 actually does. But recently, there are some medicines such as Ozempic, which are actually used by many people to reduce their weight. Now, the particular medicines, what you call patent has been gone. So many people are actually what you call generating this particular medicine, and that one part is called semaglutide. And the semaglutide ensures that it mimics the role of GLP-1. It will ensure that whenever you're taking a tablet, it will ensure that the same signals that GLP-1 sends to your body, meaning that there are three aspects. One is the food aspect, second is the metabolic aspect, and three is the insulin aspect, right? In the first aspect, it tells your body that your body is full, then there's no need for you to eat, right? And second one, metabolic aspect, where it will tell you that it will ensure that your stomach is full for a longer period, so you won't eat for a longer time, right? And three, it will manage your insulin generation in a proper manner. Basically, insulin is nothing but whenever there is high amount of sugar in your blood, insulin is released from the pancreas, and whenever the pancreas releases the insulin, it will ensure that the sugars present in the blood are going to the cells properly. Whenever there's insulin resistance, you'll get diabetes. Okay, that's how people get diabetes. It's not because of sugars. Many people think it's sugars, but it is the presence of sugar in the body. And everything we eat, everything we drink has sugars. There's no particular way we can say that this particular thing is sugar and this particular thing is not sugar. So keep that in mind. So that is how the semaglutide works. The reason we need semaglutide is because there are some people who are actually obese, right? So obesity is actually a main problem, a main health problem that is present in around the world, right? Countries like USA are top rated on obesity, right? Even in India, the obesity is actually increasing. So whenever people have what you call these kind of problems where they are obese in nature, obese meaning their BMI, body mass index is greater than 30, or if their body mass index is greater than 27, or having diseases, or if they have diabetes type 2, only in these cases they use the semaglutide. Medicine is used in these what you call scenarios. So that is what I wanted to mention, because this kind of questions you might get in UPSC. UPSC might ask what is semaglutide or Ozempic, right? It will give you a list of names and then it'll ask you various options. It can ask you any option, so just keep in mind, right? That is all about today's current affairs. Hope you guys have understood all that is necessary for UPSC in today's newspaper. Thank you guys. We'll meet you in the next session.